Hello, friends. Welcome back to another week of Trending. Today is Thursday, September 14th. It's a little after 10 o'clock as we're rolling here. Good morning, Joe.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Another busy day. Looks like it might rain a little bit. I think I've heard multiple people say that we're just trying to will spring into existence or fall into an existence.
Yeah.
Not quite there, but everybody wants it.
Yes.
So we're all just like, come on. Like, it's time.
Yeah. I mean, fall is the quintessential season.
It's the best time.
Is. You kind of get a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You get to layer up.
Well, today we're going to try something a little bit different. This is actually what we used to do. For people who have been watching or listening for a long time, this is kind of the original shtick. As we took 5 topics, we'd power through them kind of quickly.
Right.
We kind of stopped for a while. We kind of honed in on one to go a little bit deeper. There were 4 things that you and I talked about this morning, Joe, that could have been potential things.
Right.
But we kind of wanted to talk about all of them. So we're going to do our best. I'm going to try to hold Joe.
Yeah, it's mainly me.
I'm going to try to zip your mouth after you've gone long enough.
That's right. Sin boldly.
And, yes. We're going to hit 4 things. So I'm going to kind of give a brief overview, and then we'll see if you can add whatever you want to add and what can we learn from it. That's kind of our goal from today. We got 4 pop culture things. What can we learn from them?
All right, let's do it.
Okay. Number 1, this is kind of a sad one. We've mentioned this on our show many times. We love Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah,
I love Jimmy Fallon.
Yes.
I'm missing him during this writer's strike. It's hard to not have Fallon to watch.
Yep.
But I guess it was last week now, some news came out that a lot of his writers and some of his staff came out saying that he was actually really hard to work for, really hard, really stressful work environment. Yeah. Had some not very nice things to say about Jimmy. And they kind of said he's kind of got this really nice, friendly, cool persona on TV, but that's not always who he is in the office every day. Mm-hmm. Which I can't, first of all, I can't imagine working on a daily talk show. No. That has to be an exhausting job, even if it is the best person in the world to work for. Yeah. That's a hard environment. But still, Jimmy came out, released a statement saying he was so sorry. He did a couple interviews. It seems like he's not trying to hide from it. He's embracing it and addressing it. This is hard. You and I are both fans of his. Of course, I don't want to give him credit that I wouldn't give to someone else. But what do you have to say about Jimmy Fallon, workplace, stressful environments, how to be a good leader in those environments? 1 or 2 minutes. What you got?
1 or 2 minutes. So I guess I would say, like, hopefully he learns from it. Hopefully he bounces back, and hopefully the structure of the show makes some changes so that it could be a better work environment as they continue to crank out good product. I think what speaks to me is this anger. I think anger is a topic that all the wisdom traditions talk about. I love the way that the Apostle Paul facets anger. He says, in your anger, do not sin. Yeah. I think sometimes we equate anger equals sin, and that's simply not the case. There's actually appropriate things to be angry about. But I've loved Dallas Willard, The Divine Conspiracy, reference it all the time. But his treatment of anger is important. He says, anger is just your body telling you you're not getting what you want. Now, what you do with that, I think, it reveals maturity or immaturity. And so I think that we need, as we vet leaders or people who are going to be responsible for, something big that's going to touch a lot of people, shouldn't we, have we had enough cautionary tales recently, if not through all of time, to say, how does this person deal with anger? What happens when they don't get what they want? Can they metabolize that constructively, or do they take it out on people? Now, where's the breaking point? Can they hold on for a while, but then they just reach a breaking point? Can they have an avenue to share frustration so they can vent it in order for them to kind of work through it so that we can continue to trust them to be a leader? I just think what we're seeing over and over again is that when the leaders don't get what they want, they act out in explosive anger, and it ruins churches, families, relationships, organizations, you name it, sports franchises, all that stuff. So I just think one of the critical vetting processes needs to be to ask an applicant straight up, when you were angry, how did you deal with it? And maybe they could talk through that, and then hiring committees could say, okay, maybe there's some red flags here, or that seems to pass the test for us, because you're going to get angry. You're not going to get your way at some point. Right. So how are you going to deal with it when that happens?
And we're all susceptible to it, right?
Absolutely.
Jimmy's job is to have fun. Yeah. That's his job, and it's still a stressful job. Yeah. So we're all, it's wise to get in front of it, especially if you're in a leadership position.
Yeah. So. Sure.
Okay, we got to move on. Next up.
All right.
I feel like we're on PTI with a little countdown.
That's a dream of mine to be on PTI someday. I'm looking at you, Kornheiser.
Okay. I'll be Wilbon. Okay, next up. Okay, so I guess a couple of days ago was the VMAs, which they used to be. I don't really watch VMAs. I don't really pay attention to it too much. The big splashy news about the VMAs this year is that NSYNC is back.
Oh, man.
So the 5 of the guys got together. They haven't been together on the same stage for, I think, 10 years, something like that. They presented an award. Taylor Swift was the winner. She was the recipient. There's all these rumors that NSYNC's going to get back together and perform some new songs tied to the new Trolls movie coming out. Justin Timberlake is the voice of one of the main Trolls. The internet exploded because NSYNC is back.
Okay.
Here's my question for you, Joe.
Okay.
I think it's always true. Like we've always, as people, we're nostalgic. I think that's just part of our DNA.
Yeah.
We remember the good times. We like to kind of look back and reflect, and I think it's mostly a good thing.
Yeah.
But it seems like right now we are in like peak nostalgia culture. We love looking back 20-ish years and kind of looking back fondly on the good old days, right? So I think Brent's even talked about this. There are some Bible verses that kind of warn us against that.
Sure.
We can't hold too lightly to the past, but it's also fun and comforting to do that. And it keeps happening in pop culture.
Yeah.
More and more things from 20-ish years ago keep resurfacing.
Yeah.
So are there things we need to kind of warn ourselves against with nostalgia? Is it okay? What's your thought on NSYNC coming back, and when is it appropriate or not appropriate to hold on to the old days?
I guess with the NSYNC piece, it's a free market, right? So why not test it and, try it in popular opinion. If they fail, well, it was a good try. And a few people had a lot of fun.
Yes.
But I think if it lands, then good for them. I think sometimes we don't allow celebrities to have a long career. I know. I think it's a very complicated life. I don't know if we need to feel sorry for celebrities like some people do. I don't feel like we got to dunk on them all the time either. I think those are the two extremes that we see. But I think Troy Aikman said this about being a quarterback, which is a /celebrity for like the Dallas Cowboys. He's like, imagine retiring from the thing that you want to do your whole life by the time you're 35 years old.
Right.
And then this is the big question, what do I do next? And he was able to land well. So I just think maybe these guys they haven't been able to figure out what's next. And they still got some juice in their talent. Maybe they got some people who really want to back them. So why not give it a shot? So in regards to nostalgia, this is just part of the kit of being human. We're the Homo sapiens, they're the thinking and reflecting beings. And I think that we do look very fondly on the past. We overlook a lot of the stuff that was pretty stinky about it. Yeah. And I think that in that same proportion, we're terrified of the future. Our limbic system that employs the fight and flight, ways that in which we deal with the unknown and with danger out there. Yeah. I think it's overreactive in regards to what the future might turn into. And so I think we'd say, can we actually use all of our energies to recreate the past instead of maybe more postured towards the unknown of the future? This is actually something that the church is susceptible to. So Russell Moore's new book, he's got this great chapter called The Scandal of the Evangelical Limbic System. Wow. Which is a hat tip or a play off Mark Knowles' A Scandal of the Evangelical Mind, a classic phrase from a previous publishing piece by Mark Knowles. And Russell Moore, he's in the chair of the ethics committee for SBC. Now he's a general editor, prez of the Christianity Today. Yep. He just sees it. Like, he's got this great purview of the Christian world, particularly the American Christian world. He's like, why are we so eager to be afraid of what might happen next? Yeah. So I think our fear of what could come, it just amplifies our fondness of the past. So I think that nostalgia is fine. I just think we got to maybe tuck it in and keep it in check because we're moving forward. We cannot retrieve the past, and it wasn't as rosy as we imagined. So let's continue to learn from our past, but then also have a hopeful posture for the future, because that's the Christian message, is to be hopeful for the future. And so I think we got to be the tribe of all tribes who is hopeful about what is to come. Yeah. And so I think we should live into that.
Yep. Yeah. Agreed. 2 quick comments just because I'm kind of an NSYNC fan. I'll admit, I like NSYNC.
I love it, man.
Dude, so you mentioned they're around our age.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this. They only had 3 albums.
Right.
Like, they were this worldwide phenomenon. They only put out 3 albums, which is pretty crazy.
They had so many hits on them. That's why I felt like they had like maybe 7 or 8 albums because of all the hits they had on the radio.
Yes. So that's crazy to me. Yeah. And on the nostalgia thing, I heard a really good teaching one time about after Jesus rose from the grave, and I think it's Mary comes to him and he says, "Don't cling to me." Right. Like, and I've heard a really good teaching about like, you don't hang on to what has been. Like, this, there's the new that's happening now, and I've always just remembered that as kind of a good teaching.
And I think Christianity, my friend Joseph Weimer said, Christianity is just one big confirmation bias recovery seminar. I mean, the Israelites at the beginning of the Book of Acts. If the Book of Acts is like somewhat of a description of who the church is going to become, what we're emerging into.
Yeah.
I mean, their very first conversation, the last conversation with Jesus, the very first episode of Acts, they're like, "Are you going to restore Israel? Are you going to bring back the good old days and fulfill all of our promises and wishes?"
Right.
And Jesus is like, "Nah, like you're going to be witnesses to the ends of the earth. Like you're going to travel to places where your mama didn't want you to go, and that's going to be the call of God." And it ends with a sectarian Jew, Paul, who's also a Roman citizen, preaching Christ under Caesar's nose under house arrest in Rome.
Yeah.
Like nobody thought that the story would ever go that direction, but it did.
Yeah.
And so you say you want to be a Christian, I say I want to be a Christian. Well, get ready for our nostalgia to be challenged and our confirmation bias to be challenged, because we are going places we never thought we'd be prepared for on mission with God.
Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Okay, 2 more quick things, Joe. You ready?
Gotcha. Yep.
2 more. So let's see. Yesterday was another big Apple event where Apple unleashed all their new Apple products. So they do this about once a year at least, sometimes multiple times a year.
Right.
New iPhone, new Apple Watch. There's different models of both of them. I watched the whole thing was an hour and a half, something like that. I watched a 17-minute highlight thing yesterday so I could kind of get the gist of it. There's some cool new things. Of course, there's always new, better camera, longer battery life, blah, 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 all those kinds of things. My perspective, my humble opinion, I'm an Apple guy. I've got a lot of Apple devices. There's nothing groundbreaking that I could see.
Right.
So we're in this spiral, I think, and this is just American culture, I think, where we just feel, I think a lot of us feel like we have to have the newest iPhone, even if there's not really that much of new features that we're excited for, the watch or whatever. And Apple keeps cranking out new models, even if maybe they don't need to. There's not really significant changes to these models.
Right.
So we've talked about this before, American consumerism, culture, even economics. I never took an economics class, so I don't pretend to understand. But I've heard some people talk about recently, if you want the stock market to do well, if you want the American economy to do well, just keep buying stuff. A lot of this stuff is kind of artificial. Like how we view money is kind of what we all collectively believe about money, right? So if we all keep spending money, the economy is going to keep doing okay.
Right.
But that's kind of weird do we need to spend money just to spend money? And should we buy an iPhone even if we don't need it? There are lots of things you could say. What's one little nugget about the new Apple event from yesterday?
Well, I didn't get to watch it. I like Apple stuff too. Although I think we've got an Android kid in our house, so that's going to be interesting. It'll be fine. Yeah, it'll be fine. She'll get older. She'll grow out of it. No,
it's a phase.
That's right. No, so there's a great book by Ross Douthat. He's a great thinker, great writer for the New York Times. He wrote a book called A Decadent Society, about decadent society. And basically, like where we get to afford neat and lofty things, and we flood our life with a great deal of experiences and neat things, but sometimes that could come at the replacement of innovation, of galvanizing our culture and people to go off something greater. And he contended that the moon, the space race was like the last great thing that the American people did, and ever since then we've been distracted with consumption and stuff, and that probably has like a downstream effect of now, the movers and the thinkers who want to impact American culture, instead of leveraging our innovation, instead of leveraging our collective intelligence, because we're like an educated people, now we're being reduced to consumers instead of citizens. And that's interesting. So in order to reach us as a people, you've got to sell us a product instead of to give us a purpose and a pursuit. And I just think over time, I'm not alarmed by it, but over time, like those innovation muscles can atrophy. Yeah. And what happens if the world begs us to give us a problem that we should be able to work on and solve, as all these great gifts and all this great opportunity that we have, but yet we've gone through apathy. We've gone through this atrophy of muscles for innovation, and we're caught off guard, and we're not able to contribute to the world like maybe we could have been called to. And so, what does that say? I mean, that's maybe a high and lofty philosophical. It might be sophistry at the end of the day, but I do worry that American society is like further and further being just looked at as consumers. That's the primary way in which we are grouped together, and not citizens who might be able to contribute to our collective good as a country, but also the collective good of the world. And I think because of that, it's reduced because of it. And so I would just say, once again, what does a Christian do? How can we spend, but not as the world spends? Maybe that would be the proper pastoral theology for this. Know what's enough. What happens if you just say, carte blanche, I'm going to skip one of the series of the Apple devices, just as a silent protest of the shaping of my own soul, that I don't have to have everything that's offered out there. It actually might be a decent effect of strengthening our own moral muscles, to not just be swept away with the stream of consumerism. Use these things and leverage them for the greater good, sure, but we don't have to get in line all the time for these things. We can skip a series or two, and we're going to survive. We might be chided by our friends, but we will survive.
Agreed.
All right.
Okay, last one.
All right.
I'll try to hit this quick. This is another kind of big, weird thing.
All right.
But some news came out, I think just yesterday, that there's a new archaeological dig where they've maybe found some remains, possibly from like the Sodom and Gomorrah era of the Bible. And it's interesting because they're saying there's evidence of possibly like an asteroid hit. And so there's things about maybe some kind of atomic something caused some significant wreckage in that area of the world, where the archaeological evidence might line up with what happened in the biblical account. So, of course, they're kind of making guesses based on what they can find from the evidence and the archaeological record. Obviously, it was a long time ago. It's hard to make really clear solutions from something that happened that long ago. But it's still interesting that, at least potentially, there's some evidence that there's scientific and archaeological evidence that backs up the Bible. So, I mean, it's kind of a cool, if nothing else, it's kind of cool.
Right.
What do you think about that?
I think in general, like, Christians are begging for archaeological evidence that validates the Bible. There's probably a whole lot less in reality than what has been assumed. And I took a look at this article, heard some chatter around it. And I mean, some of the critiques are like the people involved in the paper, they may not have had a peer review filter to put this thing through. There's some folks contributing to it who went to a non-accredited, college that, espouses a very literal reading of the text. And so they've got this agenda to try to find something in order to validate their faith claims. It may not be very reputable. There's a chance that the evidence around it, there's no way that it would have been in the actual site may have been later in the Bronze Age than the time period. If you read the Genesis accounts, literally as possible. It would probably earlier Bronze Age, where this site in Jordan is later in the Bronze Age. And so I think there's just a lot going on there. I think behind the thing is probably more interesting to me, which is, why do we as Christians want archaeology to tell our story so badly? I think that we do want to have people, take the Bible seriously, maybe more seriously than they do. And we think that archaeological evidence will be like a good, face card in the game of poker for that. I think we're going to come up empty more than we'll actually hit the mark. I think it's just worth, and this is something I think I just gathered over time in the learning experiences that I've had. Like the communities that the Bible has as it's in its narrative really were insignificant people. They were like small populations. They weren't the big hitters in the development of empires and stuff. They weren't trend setting in regards to like global history. They're significant to us because it's our faith document, and it's the stories that we know and cherish, and the ones that we look to for guidance and wisdom. And so I just would like slow our roll. Anytime like a new archaeological thing comes up, I think it's a good posture to say, okay, who wrote it? Where are they from? Is it peer review? Like all those things really do matter in this science and this academic contour. So I would start there and really read around it, because unfortunately we could be swept away into believing something like a lullaby can kind of convince us, and not really something that's data. Can I get this like data over dogma thing would probably be a better posture. I just remember like being shown a video at some point, maybe, I don't know, a youth group or something like that, where they claimed to find all the chariots, of the Egyptian army in the bottom of the Red Sea. And it's like, I mean, like, wouldn't that be nice? But I mean, that's so long ago. Can you imagine what water would do to these things? So they're like these like, up close pictures. I'm like, I just think we have to have a fair bit of healthy skepticism until we look into it further.
Yeah.
And just try to find a Christian archaeologist who can just tell you plainly, like, they find very little.
Yeah.
But they do. It is breathtaking when they find something.
Yeah.
But I just think sometimes we hear these stories of, we're just walking around this place in North Jordan and boom, it's like, well,
yeah,
okay. But I just think it comes from this posture of, we want to appeal to the world about the good story that we know and the faith that we've come to know. And maybe people get closer to giving us a hearing if there's some external evidence outside the Bible that would validate the Bible's claims. I think that's all that's pure. I think also we shouldn't wait for an archaeological silver bullet to get us there. Why not just live out our faith as winsomely as possible?
Yeah.
That actually might be a better claim
Yeah.
than the hotly contested archaeological claims of any faith tradition, not just Judaism and Christianity in the world of the Bible.
Yep.
So
I think Prince even said recently, or maybe it was you, I don't know, but like, there is evidence for a faith. Like, there is evidence for it. But you're not, like you just said, you're not going to find this magical thing that's going to prove everything to be true. Like, that just doesn't exist. So in order to be a Christian, there are facts and science and evidence, but it is faith. There are things that we're not going to be able to prove. So you're going to need faith whether there are these facts or not.
Yeah, that's right.
So like, hang on to faith, because that's what's actually going to get you through this long journey of faith, is faith. Because you're not going to have an artifact for every single thing that's in the Bible. Yeah. It's cool. Like, I think it's cool when people stumble across this kind of thing. I think it's awesome.
Right.
But I think it is also wise to not base all of your faith on these things, because they're going to come and go, like you said.
Yeah, but by all means, like, look into these things. By all means, but I just would, like anything else, get an array of sources. Like, don't just have a maestro. That's unwise for anything. Just one author, one voice. Yeah, it's good to have a plurality of voices, because people they just can't help but bring an agenda. And so if you would like the data and not just the dogma, like the assumed beliefs that haven't been tested totally, it's just good to have a plurality of voices so that you just won't be swept away by someone who's got an agenda.
It's good. Yep. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap it up.
Let's do it.
Okay, so today, for those people watching, listening, and for you and me, let's try to be good leaders, even when we're angry.
That's right.
Just like Jimmy Fallon. Maybe didn't do, but let's try to learn from Jimmy Fallon.
That's right.
Maybe it's okay to listen to NSYNC and be a little nostalgic, but also look to the future.
Right.
Okay. You don't need a new Apple Watch.
Yeah.
And it's great to look for reason, but hold on to faith.
Yeah.
I do it, but what else am I missing?
I don't know. Does the toilet paper need to come off the wall or down the wall?
That's for next week's. That's for next week's conversation. All right. Well, let's wrap it there. So thanks again to all of you guys watching or listening. Hope to see you again Sunday here at Ridgepoint. We're back here next week for Trending. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.